We are on time. To start with, I will very much like to share with you guys a little resume from Courtney Summers' work. I promise that it's going to be very quick. Young adult novelist, that is the main occupation, I bet to say. So she's a Canadian author, as you have heard before. Crack It Up to Be was the very first novel she wrote back in 2008. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so since then, she has been breaking souls and hearts because most of the books are, no spoilers, but very hard to read, at the same time enjoyable. She won the Civils Award of YA Fiction in 2009 with this novel, Crack It Up to Be. We can find short stories from her in both the Defy the Dark and Violent Ends anthologies, which
Yep.
I think that is particularly curious. I didn't know you were also into like short stories.
Sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes.
That's pretty nice. So we can also find several novels of her own, such as Some Girls Are, This Is Not a Test, Fall for Anything, Please Remain Calm, All the Rage. All the Rage happens to be translated to Spanish. We can find it as Con Toda la Furia in PRya. Most of the books are available in online bookstores and bookstores here in Mexico. Not everything is translated, but we can get access to them. So now we are going to discuss the body read from the book that we read for spring here in Mexico, because it's not a spring in Canada. But
Well, it is kind of. I mean, it's spring, but it's more spring-like than what other people would consider spring. It's still we have, you be cold here. It's cold.
yeah, I get you. So following the literary success of Sadie, which is the book that we are going to discuss right now, we also have The Project and I'm the Girl, which I do have my copy with me right now.
Oh,
This is going to be my next read.
oh my gosh, why would you follow Sadie with that? That can't be emotionally healthy. That's just gonna just back to back. Why?
I am very used to books like this. And
Good.
I think that we all need to cry a little bit in our lives.
That's that's true. Some more than most.
We need to do it. Yeah. So you are a very well praised woman, I dare to say. An amazing author. You have received numerous awards and honors, including the Spray Mystery Award, the Odyssey Award, and the International Thriller Award in your career. And apart from being the critically acclaimed writer that we get to the chance to meet right now, you are an activist for the queer community, and I will very much like to recognize that labor of yours.
Oh,
And of
thank you.
course, you are also a reader that enjoys like advanced readers copies from your
Yes.
colleagues.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of that's why I really became an author, so I could get free books.
Yeah. So last but not least, Courtney lives and writes in Canada. This is the very first time in Mexico for you, for
Yeah.
an author event, and I am very proud of that. I am very happy to have you here to get to know you. So, ladies and gentlemen and non-binaries, please welcome Courtney Summers.
Thank you. That was an immensely kind introduction. I don't know, can I like put it in my back pocket and make everyone listen to it before I go anywhere, because I don't think it's going to get better than that. And I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for making Sadie your spring pick. That was really cool for me, and getting tagged in the stories and seeing everyone's reactions has been really gratifying, even though I'm seeing a lot of crying faces. But it's been very cool to be your pick, and I'm glad that I can be here today to discuss it with you. So I wrote Sadie over 5 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. It came out in 2018, and it turns 5 this year. And it was really born of, at the time, Serial was just, I think it was close to the end of the run for that podcast about it was like, it was really the first of its kind, the true crime podcast about a murder, and everyone was on NPR, and everyone was binging it, and they were tuning in every week to find out if this man was guilty of this horrific crime and if he could be proven innocent. And I just thought there has to be a huge emotional toll to commodify something so heartbreaking that has impacted so many people on varying levels of their lives, obviously some more than others, just to have to live in that atrocity, to fight for your innocence, to have to revisit the injustices of that case, and also to be the family of the victim involved. Like there are just so many, it just continually branched out into the amount of, I guess, hurt, like there'd be a lot of hurt dredging that up to watch people investing in it in a way where they were treating it like it was a television show when real lives were on the line. And I thought, what, gosh, there's a lot you could say about that. So, and I also thought, well, why can't a book be a podcast, which makes no sense whatsoever. But I thought it'd be cool to kind of approach a scripted podcast element and sort of examine the commodification of violence against women, and how we handle these conversations when they are framed in a way that is designed to entertain, because there's always a cost. It doesn't matter, there's always a cost. And it's something that I really wanted to unpack with Sadie. And of course, I really am completely and totally drawn to the sister dynamic. It's not the first time that I've explored it. I explored it in This Is Not a Test, and then it came back for Sadie, and then it's in the project, and it's kind of in I'm the Girl. I just think there's a real an intensity of that bond that is fun to explore in YA fiction. So yeah, I got to work on the book, and it came together. I don't want to say easily, but it was a lot of fun to mix formats like that. I've always liked writing. Like I'm never going to write for Hollywood or anything like that, but script writing is really fun. It's a different way to employ voice. So I got to learn a little bit more about writing in a different way, and then looking at different, because with the script, it's about what people aren't saying, right? Like, because nobody's going to go on a podcast and say what they're truly feeling inside. They're going to say what they think makes them look best, or cover their truths. So just finding ways around the narrative that would also give people insights into character without being like explicit was really fun and interesting. And then, of course, there's the ending that I get yelled at continuously 5 years on. What happened to Sadie? I'm sure that's a question somebody's gonna have, and I don't know if I can answer it still. Like 5 years later, it's just fun to have tormented people so brutally with that open-ended question, but it felt necessary, because I think once you put a bow on an ending like of a book like Sadie, you're undermining the story that you're trying to tell. If it had ended happily, I think a lot of people would feel really cheated and angry at me in a different way, in a way that it would call into question my integrity as a writer. And I think that's my most important thing to me, is to approach these stories with a level of integrity so that I can stand by what I'm trying to communicate, because it's very easy to be exploitative with these kinds of subject matters, and I didn't want to be that. So that's more or less how Sadie arrived and some of its inspirations. It's the farther I get from it, I wish I could remember an author I recently read. She had a book that was really popular, and she's like, it's gotten so far away from me now that it belongs to other people. It's bigger than me. And that's what it really feels like, what happened with Sadie, which is really cool. But every time I try to rein it in and tell people like what I did, I feel like I'm almost intruding on an experience that has grown so far beyond what it started. It's surreal.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing everything like that. This is a particularly dark book for being like contemporary AYA. I really like the thriller elements, and of course the message that you provide us with as readers. This is a total experience, and also I will very much like to say that the audiobook is like amazing as well. Yeah,
I
it
had
is.
nothing to do with it. I mean, I felt so lucky. They were like, "We're gonna make it a podcast. We're gonna bring in voices," and I was like, "What?" Really? When I listened to it, it was the closest I've ever gotten to, because like when you write a book, you will never experience it like a reader does. So this is the closest I've ever felt to being like a reader of my own books, and I was like, "Oh, I get why people get so mad at me now." It's like I was so upset at the end because you could hear West's voice. He had like this little tremor at the end, and I was like, that hurts my feelings.
I will have like it if you like. Did you ever think of joining the podcast cast in the audiobook?
Oh, oh gosh, at one point they asked me if I'd be interested in doing a voice and I'd be like, sure, and then it never happened, which is probably not a bad thing because when I get nervous, like you'll probably find this throughout the chat, like my voice is gonna rise 30 octaves and become really unpleasant to listen to. So it's probably better it didn't work out.
Oh, it is a shame. It is a pity that you couldn't join. But like maybe in another audiobook.
Maybe.
Yeah, please do. The production is magnificent. Like having a full cast is really an immersive experience for us, for the storytelling, but for us readers as well. And my mom always says that there are two sides of a story. If
Right.
we need a story like to understand better, we need at least two perspectives, and that's what we have here. We go back and forth between the perspectives of Sadie and West McCray. So I was listening to a little interview of you like 5 years ago, I think,
Oh no.
when
What did I say?
oh well, you mentioned that in the beginning, I think that the first draft, you were thinking of making the whole book a podcast script. So that was a very first idea. And how did you end up having both perspectives?
I think the book really started, it did start first with the podcast. So once I was into that script, I was like, I was really into it, and I didn't really know how the narrative was going to expand. And I think it was a natural inclination for me to open up the book with Sadie's perspective, because by that point I had been writing the perspectives of young women for so long. It just seemed so entirely absent. And I think, like, you make a great point. There's two sides to every story. Like, to get the full picture of a story like Sadie's, you cannot have any less than two perspectives, I would think. I mean, she is really she's the glue that holds it all together. It would be such a lacking book without it. And I kept trying to like interject very personal things into the podcast element before I got my grip on it. And so in the beginning, like West was really angry and divorced, and he was talking about like his marriage and his children. I was like, who would say this on a podcast? I mean, he doesn't say it in the book anyway, but I was just like, why am I trying to bring someone's humanity and their flaws and imperfections to the fore this way? That's not what this book needs. It needs a different perspective to bring in that personal touch. I don't know what I was thinking with the West stuff, but I got to know him a little better. None of it made the book, but it's good to have a sort of undercurrent of understanding where people are coming from. But it needed Sadie more than anything else.
And totally right. We need to know what's going on with this girl who happens to be the protagonist of the story. It makes sense that you had this first person perspective from her. So now, Courtney, I have read this book several times by now, and I still picture most of the elements. Like I need an adaptation of this story. And one time you mentioned that there was a lot of TV interest. That
Yes.
yeah, that it was some people in the industry were looking for you to make this adaptation or something. But um, in my opinion, and because I have a dream cast, in my own opinion, I think that both Maya Hawke or Sadie Singh from Stranger Things
They'd
will
be
be a
great.
very nice, yeah, they will be
Yeah.
a very nice addition.
They would. It was yeah, at the beginning with Sadie, and it took off there when it came out. There was a lot of calls from like TV people and Hollywood people, and the problem with that was, which was really disheartening, was that many of the people that I talked to were men, which is fine, but they said we want Sadie to be a season that is the like the catalyst for a show about West. And I was like, "Oh, you didn't get the book at all, did you? Like this book is not about West. This story is not about West. It is
Yeah,
about Sadie. It is about this girl. It is about what she like shows this man about the inherent problems of commodifying her experiences for entertainment purposes, and now you want to make that the show. And it was so disappointing. And then I did get an option from a woman who just totally got it, and she wrote a really cool pilot episode that I got to read, and it was very, very good. And for the same reason, basically, that it was just they felt that it was too grim and too dark for the current market, which I don't really agree with. I think it's probably more like the problem was that it's more female centered than male centered, because it was an overwhelming amount of feedback saying make this about Wes. Sadie can be a moment in Wes' story, and then we turn it back to him. And I was like, no, 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 thank you. As much as I would love to see an adaptation, that would feel like a betrayal of everything that I wrote. So that's the way it goes, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, I think that you made a good choice.
Thank you.
And I am so proud that you could decide that.
It's
Uh,
it's tough. I mean, it's very tempting to, because who doesn't want to see something like that they've made be translated into film? But it's and a lot of the times when you do option something in the knowledge that it's going to be what you want it to be, it doesn't turn out that way anyway, because there's so many people working in Hollywood and so many people have their hands in a production, that sometimes what starts out on exactly the note you wanted it to just goes completely by the wayside. But I guess when it starts out on the note you don't want it to, you can at least say, okay, no, I don't think this has a chance of improving. It could just get even worse.
um, if you were in charge of this film, like, and talking about particularly about the soundtrack, what will be the selection of artists or musicians or bands that you would like to include? Like, who will be a good fit to capture the mood of the story?
Well, why don't we just get the Lumineers to do a whole concept album for her?
Thank you
I
so
know
much.
you love the Lumineers. We,
Yeah.
we couldn't let this chat go by without talking about the Lumineers. But actually, why not? Because I loved Three, that album. I just love how it was telling a whole complete story. I was like, God, guys, get your hands on Sadie. You could write a bunch of songs about her.
Oh my gosh. I was not planning that question at all. Of course, I was not.
Of
But
course.
yeah, of course. I think Lana Del Rey will be a
Okay,
nice
yeah,
fit.
Lana would be great too. Yes,
Yeah,
with that,
because
like, yeah. Can they collaborate? Can they make like the Dream album together?
imagine like that main theme of the film or the TV show, the
It would.
Lumineers
Oh
fit
God,
Lana Del Rey. Yeah,
please. We're gonna manifest. It's gonna happen.
yeah,
That's
we are
by
manifesting right now.
2025. Yes.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing all those details. And like we didn't know most of that. So it was very interesting to know it from you, because no one is telling us, it's you.
Well, I'm glad it's cool that I get to. It's been so long, especially when something like that is going on at the time you're not supposed to talk about it. And now I'm like, well, 5 years later, I can talk about Hollywood being kind of foolish about my book. I'm glad I get to do it here amongst people who loved it and aren't going to say, why did you turn down an opportunity like that?
No, you did the right choice. And I am very proud of you for that. We
Thank you.
still love Sadie, and we are going to love her always.
Aw, she needs it.
She needs love, yeah. So thank you so much, everybody. I would very much like to raise a toast
Oh,
before proceeding with the Q&A session. So I have like a little pink lemonade, but I also have my black tea.
nice. Options. You gotta have options.
Yeah, for both the warm and the cold weather. So to proceed with the Q&A session, guys, I will suggest you to introduce yourself a little, to say your name maybe, and what question you would like to ask the author. So who's going to start?
If nobody has questions, I'll just have to talk and I could say anything and that might not be good.
We are going to be very disappointed to miss this chance.
Don't even want to know if she's dead.
Who will be the first? Okay, Natalie, I can see your picture in here.
Hello.
Hi.
I really love your book. Reading it was a beautiful and difficult experience.
Thank
It
you.
was a little bit heartbreaking. um, I introduced myself. My name is Nat, and I study literature.
Have you been
And
tagging me on Instagram too? Have I seen your stories? I think I have.
yes, yes.
Awesome. I love your
But
reactions. They were so good.
I love your book.
Thank you.
I, I have to react.
It's better to write a book that people react to than one they don't feel anything about. So I was always thrilled when I saw the stories and the like crying faces and everything. That was so much fun for me. Sorry for the distress.
Not at all. I like it. I enjoy it. I was a little sad all the time, but it was great.
That's like the best endorsement. I need to put that on the cover like that.
Yes.
Sad all the time, but it was great.
Mm, I love Sadie. Sadie is such a complex and unique and relatable character. I sometimes, in a little bit of situations, I empathize with her and relate to her because I have a sister, and I put myself in her shoes, and I was heartbreaking uh, at that point because I don't want to my sister to happen anything bad, and I really um, empathize with her perspective, a little bit dark of life, of not trusting others. It was special, unique. Mm, it felt natural to the character and the story. I really love your character.
Thank you.
Eh, my question for you is, what was the hardest part of writing Sadie? The creative process.
That's a good question. It was, I think negotiating a story that is so relentlessly dark, it can put you in a very dark mindset for a very long period of time. And I tend to be a gloomy kind of person anyway, it's like there's a bit of that in me. So, but I don't need to be quite that gloomy. So I think it's just striking a balance where you can walk into that headspace and then find a way to walk out of it again. And that's not always that easy to achieve. And with Sadie, it was almost impossible. And it's actually getting harder for me to step out of these really demanding stories because it almost feels like a betrayal to the thing you're writing about. I don't know if that's like a healthy mindset to have, but it's just one that I've always sort of carried in me. It's like, oh, I'm there now. I'm gonna stay there, and I guess that's my life now. So with Sadie, she's so ferociously loyal to her sister. She loves her sister, and so much she's done in the name of that love has denied her the love of others and the experiences that she longs to have. And writing from her perspective was like exploring one great missed opportunity of a life. Like there was so much of a life Sadie didn't get to live that she deserved to live. And there was so much love Sadie didn't get to experience that she deserved to experience, like maternally, romantically, friendship, like all of it. She was just so isolated and so alone, and the burden of the world was on her shoulders. And I had to make that meaningful to her. I didn't want her life to be less of anything just because she didn't have the things that she was entitled to, in my opinion, as a child in this world. So just navigating just the grief of her experience was very hard. And then you bring in Wes' perspective, and he's not always cognizant, and he's not as like the empathy which would you're talking about, Sadie. Like that's incredible to me. That's like very heartening. That's one of the reasons I write. So then when I step into West's perspective, that's something that he has to learn. And so there were times where he's like denying a lot of that humanity of the experience. He's talking about how Sadie's just like a girl who's gone missing. He has to force himself to care. And just it's just negotiating these two extremes was at times very challenging, and it just reminded me of the overall devastating impact that women who go through these things have to they're subjected to. It's just very hard to occupy this. So basically the whole book was hard to write. Not just one part, not just a sentence here or there, just start to finish. It was brutal, which I guess I deserve because it sounds like, it was a brutal book to read.
Thank you for answering.
That was a great question. And thank you for everything nice that you said about Sadie. That was really kind, and it means a lot to me.
Thank you so much, Nat. Okay, so in the chat we have text from Mayra, who is one of my best friends and also the director of this book club.
Oh,
But
hi.
also Evie, who is like the one more director of the book club, is not here. But I think that Mayra is going to write some questions. I am going to give her some time to do that.
Okay.
But who would like to go next?
Hi, Courtney.
Hi.
I even though it broke me, I love your story.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you.
And my question is, what was the message you get in Sadie?
Gosh, that's like, I love that question because obviously I'm writing with intention. There's something that I want to say, but then when a book is out, like it's out of my hands, like whatever a reader takes from it, it's totally up to them. They get to have the experience of the book, and the experience is theirs and theirs alone. And it almost feels like an imposition when I start saying, well, I did this because this, and I want you to feel this about it. But I think a through line in all of my work is that, I'm asking people to care about these women who have been treated so horribly, who are looking for empathy, who have not been believed about the circumstances that they've experienced in their lives, which in a lot of cases in my book involve violence against women, sexual abuse. It is so hard to be heard in those scenarios when you are a woman. And I just, whenever I put a book out, I want to offer people the opportunity to believe and empathize with women. So with Sadie, that's what I hope they'll do with my next book after Sadie, the project. I'm the girl. All of my books just have that consistent through line. If you do anything, I just hope you occupy a space where you make yourself open to these experiences and respond with empathy, because you've got nothing to lose by doing it. Even if you don't like the book, like, you can hate my books, it's totally fine. But I just hope they make people think, why am I responding the way that I am? Why might I not like them? And how can I apply this forward? It's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so who is next?
anyone know the Jeopardy theme song? You know, the little do do, you know, the little music they have while they're waiting for like the
For the
timer to
silence,
come up.
right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I bet that we are still a little shy.
Oh, don't be shy. I'm shy too. Here, we'll just all stare at each other politely.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful. I think that Suhei wants to. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Courtney.
It's nice to meet you too.
Um, I'll try to be my best with my speaking, but I don't have really a question. I think so, but I just want to say, my feeling about this book is something like not. I think that it's hard to don't empathize with this story because being women in this world is totally difficult because it's a story that you can hear every single day, that missing girls, and a lot of people don't think it's an important deal. So when I was reading your book, I really feel it like damn, it could be a story of a lot of Mexican women. So it's so sad to say it, but it's a true. I think that we have to throw off every single day being a girl, and maybe this is a history that we have seen so close because all of us has a friend or maybe some close to us that have a missing person in his life. So I just have to say you that thanks for give us that this story, because maybe a lot of people feels better reading this and feel like his story is like something happens to a lot of people, and maybe them didn't feel alone in this kind of situations. So thank you so much for this. Um, thank you, Jerry, for this too.
That's so nice. That really means a lot to me. I think it's very easy to be complicit, not in ways we necessarily intend to be, but you know, we become desensitized to the experiences of others and the violence that it proliferates against women in this world. And Sadie's story also serves to illustrate, you know, what kind of whose stories get the most attention on podcasts, on television, and you know, marginalized identities. They do not enjoy the level of, well, enjoy is the wrong word. They do not have the level of exposure to these stories. They are further swept aside, and it is truly, it's traumatizing and tragic. It's just it's beyond words for me. It just makes it's I just find it so brutally heartbreaking, so completely inexcusable. You know, we have the power to care, we have the power to act on that caring, and so often we choose not to. And I think that's part of why Sadie's ending had to be so brutal, because you do not want people to be safe in the knowledge that these things happen to women. You want them to be uncomfortable and angry about the things that happen. You want them to do something about it. So that it resonated with you on that level means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Suhei. And it is a pleasure, you know. To do this, it's not actually me who is doing it, it's the author who gets the space to join us. It's
You
all
have
on
to make it
Courtney.
happen. I wouldn't be here if not you. You all have to be here for me to be here. You made this happen. Take some credit. I think people need to take credit when they're doing good work, and so you're doing good work. Take the credit.
I have no words really. But I do most of this because I am a fan too. So that's why I get so nervous, because it's my moment as well. I am not
It's
prepared.
awesome. I think that's good. No, that's a reflect. Like people should. You're very prepared. This is very well run. I've been to events that are not well run, and I won't tell those stories here because this is being recorded. But no, this is a good experience. But it's good to have that kind of passion and excitement drive the whole backbone of this book club. Who would want to come in with everyone being like, you know?
Yeah.
We're talking about books and we're excited. That's a
This is a
good
book
thing.
talk. This is a book
Yeah.
talk after all. So, well, we may proceed with Brian or Abram. Who will? Okay, I think Brian.
Yeah, I'll go next.
Yeah.
Hey, Courtney. So I'm Brian.
Hi, Brian.
I'll be honest, I haven't finished reading the book,
That's
but so
okay.
far I am liking it.
Oh, good.
And I've really liked the visual imagery that I've read so far. It's very nice for me. I really love that type of like writing it makes me feel like I'm seeing it. So
good.
I wanted to ask you a bit about what your inspiration was. An example is like the whole trailer park idea.
Right.
Like, did you have to go to actual places for that, or how was that dynamic?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Thank you. I think I'm not in control of how things translate in a reader's head, so that it's become a visual experience for you is very gratifying for me. I think I live in rural Ontario. I see a lot of those places. I live within those places and around them, so that is not something that is um, removed from my perspective, and it's been largely part of my life growing up. I haven't traveled to Colorado. There was a whole thing with Colorado. I had no idea how big the state was. It's not as big as I thought it was. When I think Colorado, I think like huge, expansive. It's not. And I found that out after the review copies got sent out. We got so much feedback from booksellers and librarians saying Colorado doesn't work that way. I was so mortified, which is, in my defense, I'm Canadian and my editor didn't catch it either. So, but I also love media like that. I don't know, have you ever seen True Detective? I just like there's a real grit and there's a real edge to those visuals. So when I sit down to write a book like Sadie or anything, I really want to just bring that kind of distress edging and these extreme conditions to life on the page. I just think there's something very, very meaty there to dig in verbally. And also I think a lot of the times in well, I shouldn't speak so generally, but in many YA novels, there's a glossy veneer. There's a portrayal of a middle class lifestyle that is it's just a certain way of living, and every character wants to go to college and they have a great that's not the reality for a lot of people. And I think it's important to just kind of be diverse in the portrayals of location and class and socioeconomic realities. These stories are just as important. So but yeah, I had a lot of fun building. Well, fun isn't the right word, but it was like it was just kind of the vibe. It was capturing that vibe, bringing it to life, and also making, I think it's also easy to feel like a tourist in those. Like a lot of people have ideas of poverty, and they have ideas of like people who are below the poverty line, and they're not very generous in their interpretations. And just having grown up around poverty and that kind of, it's you want to be careful. You want to make it real, but you don't want to make it exploitative. And I think for it to translate so visually for you, I'm hoping that means it's working. But yeah, that was so inarticulate. That was a good question. I wasn't prepared for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Oh, sorry, proceed.
Oh, what? I just noticed we have a question in the chat, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Mayra, are you able to speak or do you want us to read it? Oh, yeah, you cannot. Um,
She's in the
yeah,
office. I like that.
yeah.
She's like stealth participating.
I think that we may read it. Would you like to do it or?
Okay, so how did I find the inspiration for this novel? Um, Again, that was more inspired by Serial and just like asking questions of what it would be like to be on the receiving end of that kind of treatment when you're in that kind of situation and someone takes that part of your life and then makes it a podcast, bingeable entertainment. When your trauma is got a spotlight that everyone's going, ooh, I can't wait to see what happens next. That's really got to mess with you. And I really wanted people to interrogate why do I like this? You know, we all love true crime, I think, to a certain extent. Well, we don't all love true crime, but the people who do love true crime, I think that the interest is there. It's not malignant or anything like that. It's not malicious. It's not awful to be interested in these things, but it's always important to ask why we are and if there's a way that the media that we're consuming is handling these conversations. You want to at least make sure that what you're participating in is bringing as much thought to the discussion as you are. And if they're not, maybe find something different to watch. So. And it's okay. The social problem of missing women, is that the question? When you started the history, do you have any intention to make any critic about the social problem or something like that? It's absolutely, definitely a criticism on the way that we undervalue the stories of women who slip through the cracks. We undervalue their lives, we undervalue their loved ones, we undervalue their worth as people on this earth going through what they're going through. It is so much easier to turn away than to make that investment and to care about people. And again, I think my books are hoping to challenge that empathy gap. Like, why don't we care? Why can't we care more? We should. We need to. It's sort of, there's an urgency there that I'm constantly trying to impress upon people and hoping that they respond in a way that they can be proud of. Because I think a lot of people, something that I've noticed really that interests me is how sometimes people get really angry at me for writing about these things because they feel like I'm pointing a finger at them and they don't think that I have a right to do that, and they think that I'm criticizing them. It's not, these kind of things shouldn't make you feel good. You should feel like, maybe, is there more I can do? Can I do more? Even if it's just shifting your perspective. But I don't know that kind of defensiveness is going to serve anyone in the long run. But I do get like a wide variety of readers who get mad when I write about these things, and I guess they'll have to stay that way because I don't care.
Get you, totally. In fact, I will very much like to make a statement and to admit that I basically forced my best friend Mayra to read this book because I have survived with a broken heart for years because I read it, then I read it and read it again. I needed to share this story with someone. And look at us now. Here we are in the book club.
I love it. Yeah, I love how this was born of a need to share pain amongst people. It's like we can bond over our absolute hurt over this book. Nothing good, just the bad things.
No, but of course it is a sad story, but I think that it has a very big message to talk about, to discuss, because as you mentioned before, and based on the previous answer, a girl suffering, it's not only for entertainment purposes. And I think that it's important to notice that, because that's the reason why I don't particularly like horror movies with the final girls or, these gore plots. I don't think that it's something to have fun with. But yeah, I think that it's magnificent that we are reading something that we enjoy in this book, and at the same time we have a critical mind to it, to know that this is a problematic. It's not even fiction.
Right. Yeah, thank you. It's funny though you mentioned that because I'm actually like a big horror movie fan. And I think a lot of that has shaped my approach to my work because when you watch a good horror movie, like an actually good scary movie that is telling a story and it's doing so with like the care and thought that is not only wants to terrify you but bring in the humanity of these like very uh extreme scenarios. And when I mean scary movies, I don't mean torture porn. I don't mean gratuitously violent movies. I'm not interested in those. But movies that really, they're like, did anyone see The Haunting by the Netflix series?
The
It was
Haunting of Bly
really,
Manor.
yeah. It was like that kind of horror where you're talking about trauma and you're using it as a lens through for other things, right? I love stuff like that. But when you like horror, you run afoul of a lot of the bad kind of horror. And I feel like a lot of that has defined my experiences as a writer. It's like, why are we settling for this? Like that this is indicative of something that's not great about media right now that we can look a little deeper at because it's so hard to find like a scary movie that doesn't insult you in some way at some point because it thinks so little of marginalizations or women or and like it's just hard to find a good scary movie. My endless quest.
Yeah, we love The Haunting of Bly Manor.
It's so good. It's so sad.
Yeah, get you. And actually, I think that episode 8 of that episode when they explain everything about the haunting in this mansion and the backstory of Viola, I think that
Yeah,
yeah, I relate it
that is rough.
to Sadie right now.
It's episode 5 was it for me with Hannah. I'll never be over it. I will
Yes,
never be over it.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I really like that we have common interest.
The Lumiere is in The Haunting. Good taste.
Yeah, the taste. Avram, would you like to ask something or say something? I'm not forcing you, but since you are the only one left. Yeah,
Hi.
yeah,
Nice to meet you. Um, actually,
Hi,
I
I
don't
think
have any
I'm having
questions.
issues
You
with the
speak.
audio.
yeah, you're
All
having
right.
some problem. I can hear you though.
It's coming a little fuzzy on my side, but I can hear you, so I don't know what's. Oh, the internet. It's always so fun and unpredictable.
Would you like to try, or you can also write something in the chat?
Yeah, I'm gonna write.
In fact, might I is telling everybody that it was my plan.
Oh, I needed someone to suffer with me.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
best kind of.
what do I do?
It's kind of when you think about it, like when you get interested in things in pop culture, it's usually because they've made you really upset or really, really happy. It's not like it's total extremes.
Yeah, but this book arrived to Mexico 1 year after the official release. So I remember that I got the copy, but I read it until 2020, before the pandemic started. And it was, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you because you have read and you have heard this like all the time for this particular book. But I suffered a lot. And I do remember that the first time that I read it back then, the first thing I did after finished reading it was to hug my sister because I was picking her up after school. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are here, you are with me. I was feeling so proud of that both of us were feeling safe, that we were safe and sound. It felt so real and so honest.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's, oh man, making me emotional.
Oh,
I get a lot of
it's called
questions.
karma.
That's, you know what? I deserve it. It's true.
No,
I left
I
Sadie as
was
a
kidding.
big question. No, no, you're right though. Just because you're making a joke doesn't mean you're wrong. I deserved it. It's okay.
Well, we might just be waiting for Abraham, maybe if he wants to write something, but in the meantime, does anyone have like other questions or? Okay, Brian.
I'll go. So I was just thinking about how there's this, well, Sadie has a stutter, and I was
Right.
wanting to know where the inspiration for the stutter came from, or what was that dynamic behind it.
I did, I was just thinking about how difficult it would be to navigate the world with that kind of, like, okay, so, oh gosh, where do I start? 2018. So I wanted Sadie to have a significant, God, this is okay. This is hard because this was a long time ago. I'm trying to remember. There was a reason. Okay, so Sadie was written. She kind of arrived on the page that way, and then I had to take a good long look and say, why did she arrive on the page that way, and what is, because as soon as you decide something like that, you have a responsibility to people who experience it themselves to make sure that you're honoring that experience, you're not exploiting that experience, and you're taking great care and thought with that experience. So Sadie went through a variety of sensitivity readers who also had stutters or speech impediments or things that had hindered their everyday communication in their lives. We worked very closely to make that as authentic and real and doing us not a disservice to people who have stutters. So it's just, it feels so weird to say like that's how it arrived on the page. I think it needed to be like that. We don't see a lot of stuttering in fiction, I don't think, and I have heard from many readers who have stutters themselves, and they're completely surprised to find Sadie in the pages. So I just feel like that was the way the story wanted to be told. That was the way Sadie arrived on the page. And then as soon as I knew that was the situation, there was a lot of work making sure that it was right. It was not exploitive. It was handled with care. I can just say like, this is the character. Then I did the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like, I really, it bothers me when I say things like, that's just who she is, because it's not that simple. It's never that simple. Like the starting point might be that is who she is, but it's more like from the point there, what do you do once you've decided that? It's the work that you do after that counts. So it's easier for me to like go backwards and say, okay, so this was Sadie, and this is what I did to ensure that I was putting something authentic and careful on the page. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, when you go from the moment of inspiration, it just sounds it doesn't sound as careful as it ended up being. And I don't want people to think that I was just felt like I was in a playground of their life experiences and I was just having fun, because it was never like that. But every stories and characters just sort of, there's always that writing, they're just suddenly there in your head. And it's hard to articulate that without sounding careless, and I don't want to sound careless. So I always hesitate over that question, because it's like there was so much work involved, and the starting point was just there she was. You know what I mean? Yeah. But thank you for asking. I do love that question, because it's you can't write a character like Sadie and have a stutter and not be held to account by a question like that. It's good, and I like it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I also really appreciate the fact that not only she is a person with like different capabilities, or I don't want to say disabled person, but different capabilities. And also she's a little bit a part of the queer community because
Yeah.
we happen to get to know a bit of that part of her personal life, you know, and we appreciate all of that because you, as you mentioned, you handle it with care
Thank
and
you.
with the importance of representation. So that's one more thing I want to thank you for.
Thank
And
you.
I am very proud that someone is still writes books with heart.
Aw. I feel like
Um,
you're overcrediting me, but thank you. That is so kind. And thank you to Abraham for the nice comment in the chat. He said, it was just a nice comment. This has been too good for my ego. I'm gonna be unbearable after this."
yeah, I mean, you know, Sadie is one of those books that the Mexican people recommend to read in
That's
English
so cool
language
to me.
because,
Wow.
yeah, so you may don't know it, but it is true.
Okay, that's so cool. I didn't know that. That's like, I mean, like I know it's out and everything. It's just like I don't always have a sense of the impact. You know, it's very, and publishing is very strange. By the time a book comes out, you've already it's behind you, and then publishing is also very weird in that, you know, it's a flurry of activity up until they publish the book, and then once the book is out, it's suddenly very quiet. So it's like, well, what's the vibe, everyone? And nobody tells you, and you're like, okay, I'll just wait to see if they hate it on Goodreads. You know, like it's hard out here.
No, it's thank you. Maida is telling everyone that if you may have a book recommendation for us to read this summer, we have a spring peak, summer peak, but we will very much like to know what would you suggest.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I haven't finished this book, but it's blowing me away. It's called Nevada by Imogen Binney, and it follows a trans woman as she goes. It was instrumental in trans literature in like 2001, like the early 2000s. I'm like maybe 30 pages in, but the voice is incredible. And just it was re-released like 2022 or something because it was just such a seminal text and it was so important to so many people. And when you read it, like, I can't get over the voice. It's third person present tense, and it feels like first person present tense. Like, Brian, I think you would really find it very visual. It's like it's just an incredible. It's set in New York. It's just very. It's alive. That's all I can say. It's alive.
Thank you so much. That's a very interesting one. I haven't heard of it. And Maida,
It came out in a very small press, and it was like a cult classic. And then Macmillan acquired it because it was so important and just it's kind of having a reemergence. It's really cool.
I'm very thankful for Macmillan Publishing House to pick such amazing stories. And Maida, I know that you did not ask that to me, but one thing that I would very much recommend is I'm the Girl, which is the newest release from Courtney Summers. And we know that there is like a direct link that
Yes.
reaches both stories, right?
Yeah. It's there's in the when it comes out in paperback, it's going to include I've never said, I don't think I've confirmed this anywhere, but when it comes out in paperback, the short story will be included with it, so people will have a hard copy of it. Right now they can listen to it on the audiobook, but it follows West in the years after the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's almost the feedback I have gotten from it, people are mad. I found that really interesting because they have an idea of West in their mind, and in the short story he's not talking on a podcast. You find out who he really is, and maybe you won't like him.
Yeah.
We'll see. Gotta write the unlikable guys too.
I got the
liked
chance to
him.
read it. Yeah, I did like him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just he ruined his own life by doing a podcast. We should feel sorry for him.
Thank you so much, Courtney. I don't know if you guys would like to take a little picture of us together. with a book? Do you have your books?
Oh my God, I don't have my books. You don't need me to have my books, do you?
No,
I
it's
read
okay.
the ebook.
Oh yeah, most of us also read like the audiobook or something.
We're so unprepared. No.
It's okay, no worries.
No,
But
I'm the author and I don't even have the book with me. It didn't occur to me. I'm like, wow, I've got Leonard Cohen behind me, but I don't have my books. That's fine.
in fact, you have also like the tiny postcard from On the Girl, I
Yeah,
think.
I have I framed them and I put them on yeah.
Ah, and also the Leonard Cohen. It's amazing.
Everything but Sadie. For the Sadie book club talk. Good job,
No,
Remy.
it's okay, no worries. So, guys, I think that will be all for now. We're just in time, and I would like to thank again to Courtney Summers,
Thank
because
you.
you having you today was, a pleasure, and my dream came true because of
Stop.
having you.
Oh my gosh, this has been an experience, and I'm going to carry it forward. Not only because everyone said such nice things to me. I mean, that's a bonus, but I think when a book is released, I don't have control over it, and I just really hope that people are reading them with the kind of care and thought, because it's like a privilege as an author, and I got like a first row seat to all the care and thought in this room, and you gave me something to think about in ways I haven't thought of my own work, in ways that make me want to approach my work a little, more ferociously, from like the imagery to the stories that are being important to be told, like just what the reactions are like completely, it's fuel. This was so inarticulate, but I'm just like, I don't know how to say thank you when someone's giving
Well,
so much, and you guys gave a lot today, so thank you.
thank you. It was all on you, and I really appreciate your work. In fact, it will be a pleasure to have you here back. Maybe next year, later, we have much time to make something happen.
I would
Don't-
absolutely say yes.
Thank you. You guys can also find the project translated to Spanish, El Proyecto, which is it was released in 2021, I think.
Yeah.
And it was one of my favorite books as well. It's
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. Thank
And
you.
in fact, I used to call the books Sadie, the Project, and I'm the Girl, like the sister trilogy, the sisterhood trilogy.
They should get a little box. Sisters, the worst thing that could happen to a person is having a sister, I think, at this point. Is that the takeaway from my books? Don't have a sister. They'll just break your heart in the end.
Yeah, but it will be, it's just a way that I know that I
like
to
that
call
though.
it.
I like that. That's cool. It works.
I know it's not official, but yeah.
It's not, but
yeah.
we could make a push. We'll talk to Wednesday Books. They've got
Yeah.
the whole marketing bundle right there. Why shouldn't they do it?
Thank you so much for joining us today, Courtney.
Thank
And
you
thank
for
you,
having me.
everyone. Thank you, everyone, for connecting
Thank
and
you,
enjoying
everyone.
this.
Appreciate it. I hope everyone has a good rest of their day.
And an amazing weekend, everyone.
Yes, that too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.